Beyond belief. Why does it take more than a clear, logical argument to change someone's mind about something? Why do people cling to a position long after it's ceased to even be plausible? Part of the reason for this is that people don't entirely trust reason. There's some justification for this, as what can appear perfectly reasonable at one time or in one set of circumstances can appear not to be so reasonable in another. Reason is not infallible. A reasonable position is to remain open to the possibility that better reasoning may refute our current position. However, this shouldn't be used as an excuse for taking a lazier shortcut, such as faith or belief, for example. Faith may sometimes serve as a stopgap until we have stronger evidence either to support it and turn it into knowledge or to refute it and search for an alternative. However, in my opinion, reason always trumps faith. I would emphasize that reason and logic are not strictly identical. It may be that only purely intellectual processes, such as, say, mathematics, can follow the strict rules of logic. The empirical world is much too noisy for pure logic to prevail. However, it's reasonable to assume, based on the evidence and past experience, that the sun will rise tomorrow just as it did today, yesterday, and so on, even though this can't be demonstrated by means of logic alone. It's because there is this noise, it's because there are these inevitable gaps in our empirical knowledge and certainly in our quest for certainty that faith thinks it can sneak in. It can't, except as a stopgap. It's incumbent upon us to fill these gaps by seeking more information and stronger evidence. Despite all this, and despite our pretensions to the contrary, human beings are not particularly rational. We're usually driven, even in our reasoning, by other less rational motivations. This is another factor causing people, with some justification, to distrust reason. However, the fact that people who claim to have a rational argument for something are sometimes driven by other motivations doesn't permit us to believe anything we choose. If we're to overcome our prejudices, our innate selfishness, we need to be prepared to allow reason to challenge our own beliefs and our own assumptions. We won't always do this very well and probably not very easily or willingly. Sometimes we'll do it for misguided reasons, but it's better than the alternatives. I understand that people sometimes make a large emotional investment in a belief or a set of beliefs. This is true whether these are religious beliefs, political convictions, or even a self image. It's difficult to acknowledge that you've been wrong in these contexts. In addition, changing our thought patterns requires more energy than simply relaxing and remaining within our existing patterns. Furthermore, if we were to admit our mistake, we might appear foolish. And we might feel that we've wasted our time and energy on something that turned out to be false. As understandable as this is, it's simply part of our history as a race and as individuals. It's called learning, growing up, maturing. Being mistaken is not something to be ashamed of, although that's probably easier said than done. But clinging to something long after there are good grounds for doing so perhaps is something to be ashamed of.